Good evening and welcome to the West Jordan Planning Commission meeting for November 3rd, 2015. We do have all members of the commission present this evening. First item on our agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the minutes from our October 20th, 2015 meeting. Commissioner Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We approve the minutes as contained in the staff packet from the meeting of October 20th, 2015.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pack, second by Commissioner Skoski. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We have one business item, which is reviewing the proposed calendar for 2016 for our meeting nights. Any discussion to that? Any concerns with the dates proposed?
Do you need a motion to approve or anything?
I don't think we need a motion.
That's what I was going to ask.
Do you need a motion? Okay.
Move to approve the calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Pack. Discussion to that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We have two public hearings on the calendar this evening. The first one is the Pinnacle Cove rezone, 8891 South, 1030 West, rezoning 3.46 acres from R110E to PRD. HCH Development Group is the applicant. Is the applicant present? Were we expecting them this evening?
Yeah, I was expecting them.
All right, then.
I don't know what you want to do. We have a whole room full of people, and I think majority of them are here for this. And
That would be
What? Let's consider the second item first.
okay.
I'll move to change the order of the items and do the Maverick rezone first.
I don't think we need to motion that. I think we can just agree
Can we
to
do that?
shuffle up our agenda, so give that applicant some additional time to hopefully find his way here tonight. We'll then move on to item number 4, which is the Maverick Convenience Store rezone and land use map amendment, northeast corner of 1700 South and 1300 West. Future land use map amendment from City Center Neighborhood TSOD to Neighborhood Commercial and rezoning from PC to SC1. There we go. Better City, Mallory Brass is the applicant. There we go. The time is now yours.
Okay, so like you had mentioned, I'm a consultant for a company called Better City, and we have been contracted by Maverick to help with some entitlement projects. So the current property owner, Joe Long, and his real estate agent, Chris Terry, are also in attendance if you have any further questions for either me or them. So Maverick is under contract to purchase the land shown here. It's on the northeast corner of 7800 South and 1300 West. So we are proposing the construction of a convenience store and gas station near this site. So to start off, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background about the business. You're probably familiar with Maverick stores in this area. However, the new store design that we have planned for this location is something that we're really proud of. It really doesn't look like your traditional C-store. It's been upgraded and enhanced to provide a higher quality product for our consumers. The budget per store has been increased significantly for this new store format. So the new format is going to include an outdoor seating area with picnic tables and trellises, some landscaping to help give our customers a really enjoyable experience. We have a store in Kaysville that just recently opened that has that same format. Like I said, we're increasing the size of the store to give more amenities to our customers. So one of Maverick's corporate goals is to have a balanced business plan between gasoline sales and in-store sales. Maverick is always looking to improve the experience and have a wide variety of products available. One of the new features that we have in these new stores is called the Bonfire Grill. That's an expanded food service location where we've got tablets that we put up so that people can actually pick what they want on their sandwich on the tablet, and they'll process it through and get your order ready for you. So really what we're trying to do is create a new, clean, enjoyable atmosphere to enhance our customers' Maverick experience. So what our development would do is it would help provide quality of life to the city's residents. It would give easy access to a convenience store and commodity products. It also would increase livability by bringing a walkable, popular store and amenity to the community. So like was mentioned before, the site is zoned PC with the transit station overlay. So the reason we're meeting here tonight is to propose the rezone to SC1 and then also remove the transit station overlay. Property is currently vacant and it has been vacant for quite a few years. The previous use of the property was 2 single-family dwellings, and then the 12 acres that's directly east of the site is planned for the Gardner Station Apartments and a mixed-use project that has been preliminarily approved earlier this year. So staff has mentioned in their response that this location has seen interest in establishing uses more aligned with retail and commercial rather than transit-oriented uses, largely just because of its location. The street 7800 South is an arterial street and 1300 West is a busy collector street. So the intersection here is planned to undergo some improvements and widening to provide more lanes and help with the traffic flow there. So, you know, the current zoning doesn't permit a gasoline and convenience store there. However, the historic zoning of the property, I think about 4 years ago, was originally zoned SC1. So we're just trying to come full circle and come back to that original zoning. And then Chris Terry or Joe Long can kind of give some more information on the historic zoning of the site. But, you know, we're excited about this location and we think that this would be a good fit for Maverick. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
And she was very thorough.
Thanks.
Excellent, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Berger?
She was very thorough in describing the location and what they're wanting to do. There's 2 motions before you tonight. One is to change the land use map from transit-oriented to neighborhood commercial, which would allow a zoning of SC1, and that would be taking that piece of property out of the PC zone and out of the transit station overlay. The site is rather large. It's almost 2 acres for a Maverick store, but they're excited about it. It'll be, and you can see there's 2 points of access proposed on the concept plan, one out onto 1300 West and then a right in, right out only on to 7800 South. Like I said, it's almost a 2 acre site, and with, you know, if this, the site plan will come back to the Planning Commission when they get to that point. Staff recommends approval of both the land use amendment and the zone change.
Commissioner Jacob, question?
Yes, just one quick question. The eastern side of this, is that butt up against what is the Gardner Mill apartment project?
Yes, they will be over here.
There's nothing in between this and that, right?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check.
Well, there'll be garages up this way, but the driveway will come through here, and then this will be a parking lot.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hire?
I'm just curious as to how this is going to impact the plan to widen the intersection there. Is that going to be a combination of the landowner and the city working together to widen that? And on that corner, they'd have 2 sides there.
The city's working on a project right now. They've got money from state and federal sources, so that'll be a city project to improve the intersection.
So that intersection is going to be widened.
Yes.
So they will, the applicant will have to give up a certain amount of ground there to make that widening.
Yeah, some minor pieces, but it's not a significant amount that would affect the use of the property.
We've actually met with some of the city transportation staff and shown them our site plan, and so they're currently going through it just to make sure that, you know, we know where the widening is going to happen and how far it's going to come into the property. So, you know, we're aware of the widening and that, you know, the the line will need to be adjusted.
So one won't depend upon the other. You can go in as the applicant, go in and if it's approved and start construction and then maybe have the store built by the time it's widened?
Well, and that's one thing we're working out is the timeline. So, you know, the city's timeline is going to largely depend on our, you know, when we're going to be able to construct it as well. So we are working through those timeline issues so that, I mean, hopefully we can just do it all at once. So, you know, the city widening can happen at the same time as our development construction.
Just curious more than anything, what are tentative timetables?
Well, we're looking at the end of next spring or the beginning of next summer. There's a few complications with, I think Questar has some things planned as far as, you know, redoing a pipeline there. So we need to work with them as well. So really there's 3 parties.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
On the traffic question, I know you're at the preliminary stages of that development. Are there any plans for that to be a median through there, separating the north and southbound traffics on 1300?
Yeah, there's a median there now. It's actually going to be shortened a little bit so that I think it's to get so that traffic can come. This will be a right in, right out entry here, but the apartment complex is going to be required to actually shorten part of that median. But the median that separates the traffic in 1700 South is currently there.
I mean on 1300 west.
I haven't seen the final design, so I don't know for sure how far back it would go, but there.
Is there a potential that it would go back far enough to impact that left out?
No.
Okay.
That we were planning on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Green.
I was just gonna comment that this development was, the property, when, this council, or this commission and the plant and the city council approved the Gardner Station, this was all part of the agreement to, pull it out so that it didn't have high density, development on it. That was one of the restrictions that was put on that, so that was partly why this is here. Just provide a little bit more historical content, or context, sorry.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Jacob.
It's not a question for staff, just a comment. Just a reminder that all we're considering tonight is a rezone and land use map amendment, not a site plan.
Right.
So getting into the nitty gritty may be a little premature. Just saying.
This will come back for a subdivision. That's when the property will be dedicated to the city. That's how we'll handle that, and then the site plan will come. So.
Perfect.
Any other staff questions before we move on? Excellent. As this is a public hearing item, we'll give the public an opportunity to comment on this item. As far as our public hearings go, we'll give you 3 minutes, and we do ask that you come forward to the microphone and give your name and contact information in the event there's anything that staff needs to follow up with you regarding your comments there. Is there anybody who would like to comment on item 4? We had a couple people wander in. We did switch 2 of the items around on our agenda. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this particular item? The Maverick Station at 7800 South and 1300 West. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioner. Commissioner Pack.
Thank you. I thought it was very well presented by staff and the applicant. I don't have any concerns of moving forward. I'll make a motion.
I think Commissioner Green has some additional comments.
That's what I was gonna say, is I think that, I mean, I live almost across the street from this. I was one of those ones that helped fight Gardner Station for a while. And so I think this will be a good addition to the corner. The only comment that I will have, and this will deviate because of the site plan, but I would recommend to Maverick that as you look at this corner, just be a little bit sensitive to the context with Gardner Village and those kind of things. And if you can incorporate some of the theme of Gardner Station and what Colosimo's are trying to do on that project, along with what Joe's done down across the bluff, I think it'll be a positive to the community. So with that, I'm going to move that Based on the findings set forth in this staff report, upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map for 1.955 acres from City Center Neighborhood PSOD Center to Neighborhood Commercial on the property generally located at 7800 South, 1300 West.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Pack. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. You take that second one as well?
Sure. I move based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone approximately 1.955 acres of property generally located at 7800 South, 1300 West from PC and remove the Transit Station District Overlay Zone to SC1 Neighborhood Shopping Center Zone. And can you say that fast 3 times without taking a breath?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Pack. Discussion to that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Which brings us back to our previous item there, item 3, wrong page, on the agenda, which is a Pinnacle Cove rezone. Did the applicant wander in? The time is now yours.
Hi, Tim Alders, Handcrafted Homes.
Matt Robinson, Handcrafted Homes.
I don't know what the discussions you guys had. We got here.
So there hasn't been any. We rearranged the agenda when you weren't here when we called your item. So
I really appreciate that.
here's your opportunity to present your application to the Planning Commission.
Let me just tell you a little bit about us. We're a custom home builder. I've been building homes in Utah for 21 years. We normally have homes in the parade. We had 3 homes in this last parade. I grew up here in West Jordan, went to West Jordan High. I'm one of the MCs of West Jordan Parade every year, so I love this community. And was excited when we located this piece of ground. And there was some constraints to the piece of ground, but that's why we're going for the zone changes. One of the things we do is we build custom homes, even on the starter end, what people would say the starter end anymore. So we're looking to build a quality project there for people, you know, in the mid to high 300,000s. The way we have it designed maximizes the use of the space, protects the slope, gives a good open area. We feel it actually adds to the value of the area. We're going to have nice open space, you know, barbecue pit, things for people to enjoy, along with quality size homes. We're just proud of what we build and who we work with and the things we're doing. And we looked at multiple things we could do with this piece of ground and the way it slopes and the way everything is on. We're trying to meet everything that West Jordan has, but give people quality living in an area that won't have any kind of detrimental effect to anybody else. I can answer any questions. There's not much more I guess I could say other than that.
All right.
I'll just mention one thing. So with the zoning change, we're not asking for additional density or anything like that. And so the density that we're asking for on 13 homes is actually less than what would be allowed. And so all we're asking is for the flexibility to design something on a piece of land so we don't have to touch the 30% slope. So we're not asking for more homes or higher density or townhomes, anything like that. It's just we're asking for the flexibility to design it on the piece of ground that actually works so we can leave that 30% slope untouched.
Looks like we might have a couple of questions here. Commissioner Jacobs?
Yes, my question is specifically regarding that slope. When you say untouched, you mean unimproved, untouched, on everything, and it'll stay the way it is now?
No, our plan is to improve it and develop it, but untouched by any kind of building structure or anything in that aspect, trees. But you have to watch a slope. We don't want a weed patch there. So we are looking for some guidance from the city of what they'd like. But, you know, I've seen those slopes where it's grassed and so people can ride sleds or something down there without minimum stuff. So we can make something fun out of it that's still nature and green and add to the area, but untouched, we don't plan on putting a lot there or a structure there. It's going to be ran by the HOA and maintained by the HOA, but it's going to be usable by anybody who wants to go ahead and use it.
So it could be landscape, it could be grass,
Ye-
for
correct.
example, sod or something.
Correct.
No, not natural grasses, real grasses.
No artificial.
Unnatural grasses.
Commissioner Hyder?
Pretty much answered my questions, because it looks like 44% of that's gonna be green space, so, that was my question, what you were going to do with that slope. It's quite a large area, just to throw grass in and have a giant sled, you know.
Well, we build communities, and if it fits to where you can meander a walkway down there, and there's different things you can do with our landscape architects that can design something out there good. But it's like when we're building a community, yeah, it is 44% of the project, but it's 44% that we can utilize, that people can enjoy that space. And like we said, there's areas of it where we could have a barbecue pit and a little gazebo for people and flowers and other things. It's not just one big sled area. There's ways to meander a sidewalk down there so people can get down into the, other subdivisions or areas or walking paths and things. So people can utilize it. With CrossFit now the way it is, people like things with a little bit of a terrain to it.
And we tried to design it in a way where some of the open space was on the flat part too, as you can see, so that actually part of it would be useful for a barbecue pit or gazebo or a little bit of a grassy area that's not straight down too. So.
Commissioner Green?
I've got 3 or 4 questions. First question, this is all single-family homes, correct? No variety of structures, no variety of uses?
Well, the variety of uses and variety of structures is it's single-family homes, but some might be 2 stories. We're custom, so we don't build tract housing, so all 13 homes wouldn't be identical homes. They'd all be a variety of different styles, different techniques. We don't use siding, so everything would be pure masonry finishes. So it's not to where they wouldn't be unique in their own things. We don't like to build identical things. It's custom to what people want, but with what fits our HOA and our community guidelines.
So what's the common architectural thing? Or there is none?
Probably, some of the most popular would probably rotate between 2. A lot of people like the mountain rustic look, and a lot of people like the craftsman. Those are the 2 when we're building more custom type homes, where people like either the darker type stones with the stucco, with the lighter trims around the windows and things like that. So
how does this give the distinct visual character and identity of the planned development? I mean, how do I know I'm walking into, we have other planned developments that actually have an identity. How does this one have an identity?
Well, it's a custom identity. They're all handcrafted homes. They're all custom homes. It's a HOA, so it'll have labeling on it and stuff like that. I mean, if the Planning Commission recommends that they want all 13 identical units, I'm more than happy to do it. It's not something we've done in the past because we feel people like to be unique in their design for their home and their property, that they want to build something that has a little bit of flavor of themselves but stays within a design that's also nice.
Okay.
I'm good. All right, Commissioner Skoski?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple questions really fast. Lot ownership, is all of the exterior, everything outside the footprint of the home, is that controlled by the HOA, or is there going to be lot line divisions where the homeowner can have an opportunity to do what they want?
There are lot line divisions, so they have their own pad in their own area, so if they want to put a little garden in or a flower bed or whatever, then outside of that, it's all HOA controlled, roads, all that kind of stuff's maintained.
Okay.
But it's not like a townhome project where the exterior and everything's also owned by the HOA. They do have their own individual lot and their own space. Like we said, we try to give people the feel of ownership and property.
Okay.
We're open to suggestions on, where those lines should be between HOA and giving those people
my
lands.
concern is just that if you're going to have a planned development, you're going to have a consistent look throughout the community. If you break that, if you give enough of a space to the homeowner, then you're going to lose that planned development look.
I've done plan developments before. I live in a more custom end one in Highland right now, where the landscaping was designated by our units, and everybody had to at least do it within the guidelines of keeping it nice and restricted. So the HOA will have control over maintaining that it's quality and it's kept up. And honestly, when you look at the plan that was submitted, I saw it up there earlier, the pads ain't large enough to where people can really go wild and crazy, but it still does give a place where they can have their dog out, not invade with somebody else. Sure. And have a little bit of open space and a little bit of freedom. We try not to take the freedom away, but we also want to regulate that it stays and maintains good.
Okay. My other question is, does the HOA have specific rules about parking the vehicles inside the garages?
Every time we even try to make a garage in our townhomes, we try to make the garages usable. So, yeah, we will have parking regulations that, yes, we don't want on-street parking. Nobody does. So on-street parking, other than during daylight hours, no, snowfall or anything like that's going to be prohibited by the HOA. Okay. And regulated. We try to do that in our communities, but we also try to make the garages, even in our smaller products. We have a community out in Lehigh right now, and every home, even though they're just over 300, have massive 3-car garages where you can put 4. So. Okay.
And my last question is, does the HOA have any rules about rental properties? Do you have it set up so that the primary owner has to remain on the property, or is it allowed to make these properties rental properties?
We don't. I've never seen one of those actually be able to stand up in court to where I can't tell somebody, you buy the property, you have to live there. Mm-hmm. The thing about, we try to price our products, even the townhomes we're building in Highland, at a price point that rentals aren't, really feasible unless they're a high-end renter. Mm-hmm. I live in a neighborhood where there's, homes from 500 to 700, and there's still rentals next door to me. So it's hard to mandate that. You can put it in an HOA guideline, but they've been challenged time and time again that I've bought the home. I can do what I want, but it does maintain the guidelines that even if it becomes that at a future date, that the standards and the maintenance and all that has to be kept up, or the owner is responsible and can't be fined.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But again, like I said, we're doing these in a way where we're going to try and hit a mid 300 price point, and so there'll be some of the more expensive homes in that neighborhood, and so we're going to try our best to design a product that won't end up. I have a lot of rentals, and I wouldn't buy these as rentals because we're going to try and price them with granite and a lot of fixtures to get the price up. So
okay, I understand. Thank you.
One more question. On the site plan, the homes that are on the north side, what's the setback or the rear yard, the rear yard length on the north side from there to the abutting property to the north?
I actually can't see that dimension on the sheet I have. I know it falls within the guidelines of what's allowable. We always research codes and everything on my engineer, but unfortunately on this design I don't have it. Does staff remember what that was when it came in?
No, this is just a concept plan to this thing. So.
With the size of the road, I mean, again, don't hold me, because it looks like it's about 20 feet right here. But I mean, there is some flexibility with moving grass. Looking at the width of the road and then ballpark.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Wonderful, thank you. We'll save you some time after the public hearing if there's anything you'd like to comment on that comes out of those.
All right, thank you for your time.
Okay, so just to set context where this is located, it's probably redundant because I think everybody knows where it's located in the room. 90th South would be to the south, 1030 West, dead ends right at this point, and access is Thompson's and Bisharelli's property. So the main access into this would be 8925 South and then via this street. Now I don't want to get a lot into the design. The concept plan is just submitted to show the planning commission when they're changing the zone how the land will be developed and establish that they are indeed building a single-family product. And so the site, I want to back up, about 2 years ago, this site was changed or rezoned from agriculture to an R110. As the developer that was looking at purchasing this entire site at that time started working through different subdivision design and layouts, he was ignoring the slope and the 30% limit that the city has in the ordinance, and so he basically abandoned the development. It's been, sitting this way for over a year now. And so the applicant wants to develop the site, but that 30% slope, which is right here, is undevelopable according to city's ordinances. We just don't allow cuts or fill or any type of thing on a slope that's over 30%. And so this concept plan, what the planned residential development zone allows is a clustering of units to preserve, if there's a area of steep slope or something that the planning commission wants to see preserved. That is one way you can use it, or it can be used in other ways, for a common theme development, that type of thing. What's important to remember with this development is that it is within the density guideline of the medium density land use designation. Now, gross density, what I came up with with what the concept plan is 3.76 units per acre. Traditional R110 zoning, if you were to develop the entire site, take 20% out for roads, sidewalks, that type of thing, you would come out with about 3.5 units per acre. So you can see there's not a large discrepancy. However, and like I said, I don't want to get focused on the design. These won't be homes that'll have large yards. But from what have you seen in the concept plan and the packet, and the testimony tonight by the developer, they do pride themselves on what they build. And so this might be a product that is, very attractive to a group of people that are maybe looking out to get out of a large yard and maybe into a single family home with a view. The views are unparalleled from, looking out to the valley. And so, and I'm not here to sell this, I'm just making those things abundantly evident to the commission that, and so I don't have any other thing to add. I feel like it meets all of the criteria for the zone change contained in the ordinance, and staff does recommend approval of this.
I have two questions. One, will this come back to us?
A subdivision, yes. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's when we'll really get in the nitty-gritty of the design and that type of thing.
And the first thing when I started reading this and looking at the picture, the first thing that crossed my mind was North Salt Lake. What mitigation steps are taken to prevent erosion down that 30% grade as we've got sprinklers and stuff coming?
Well, that's a very good question, and we will be looking in that. There'll be a full geotech study done on the site to make sure that it won't slide down. And irrigation is a big concern because we saw one in Riverton last summer that they over-irrigated the slope, and people all of a sudden had grass in their living room, not intended. The one advantage of this site over both the Riverton and the North Salt Lake site is that both of those were former mined sites, taking considerable amounts of material off the site, and then other material was, I know in the Riverton case, I don't know about North Salt Lake, but it was a former gravel pit, and so that's the difference. This is natural, so there will be more stability, but there certainly will be restrictions in the HOA and that type of thing to try to preserve that hillside, because we absolutely do not want a North Salt Lake or a Riverton to occur.
Thank you. Commissioner Green?
The north private, the street on the north, that just looks like it's a straight piece of asphalt or 100 feet. Does that meet the code for a fire department turnaround?
It will. It will, but, this is a concept plan, this isn't a full design.
My concern is that when the concept plan is approved at the same time, if we choose to rezone this, we also concurrently approve the concept plan. So if the concept plan is not very good, I'm not sure that we ought to approve it concurrently with the rezoning change, and that's a serious concern for me. But I don't know the rules on a private lane as far as.
I don't think it's over 150 feet. You don't have to have a hammerhead unless it's 150 feet.
I have to disagree with Commissioner Green. You're not approving the concept plan.
No, it's a concurrent approval, though. The ordinance specifically says that you're concurrently approving the concept plan.
Well, I don't think that's the purpose.
Any other questions for staff at this point?
And I just want to add, Commissioner Green, that when this gets to preliminary approval, it will have to meet all of the city standards and fire codes regardless of what they've submitted conceptually. We see concept plans all the time that show general placement of buildings, general placement of roads. What this is establishing, in my viewpoint, is more the use that they're planning on doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's no further questions for staff at this time. We will open the public hearing. There were 5 individuals that filled out comment cards, so we'll give them first up. We'll just go in the order that I received those cards. Again, you'll have 3 minutes, and you'll hear the buzzer go off, and we ask that you quickly conclude your comments at that point, seeing as there's a number of individuals wishing to speak tonight. The first card I have is for Carlene Logan.
Hi, I live on the property that's north there. The north, and with those 2 houses abutting up next to it, I'm on the A5 there. And this road, my main concern is the road. This road is 14 feet wide. It's a private lane, and where you see right there on that photograph where there's a little bit more pavement, that's privately owned by the McDougals and our other neighbors. And so they do have on-road parking there. Otherwise, they'd have to park in the middle of the road. And what I have seen over and over again is people coming down my private lane and blocking it to where I have to go looking for them and get them to move their vehicle. This plan that he has, this concept plan he has, he's going to expand the road toward the east 3 feet 3 inches and have all those houses in there. There's not going to be enough parking if they ever have a guest. I know darn well people have guests, and they usually have more than one, and they all drive their own cars, and they're going to be coming down my lane and turning around in my driveway. I've had people park on my lawn before, and, I can't get out. And so my main concern about this is that there be enough parking for their guests. And right now I don't see it on the concept plan. It would be real easy to expand the road a little more so that their guests could park along the road. By taking out house number 3 and moving those 4 houses that their driveways go up to that private lane toward the hill a little bit and making the road wider. As it is, 13 houses, there's not going to be enough parking for any guests. They show a tiny little turnaround on the southern road they have there, where they say that's where the parking is. But if you are trying to turn around there and you back into someone's car, it doesn't look like it's enough parking to me. And based on my understanding of the land and the way that people's habits are, it's not. And so I would say if this is going to be approved, please consider the road itself and don't, allow them to only expand it 3 foot 3 inches. That's not enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is it Mary Cusell?
She wants me to speak for her as well, so.
Would you please give us your name and contact
Yes, Tim
information?
Williams. I reside at 8848 South, 1030 West. When I built my home in 2003, at that time the West Jordan's engineering department put our builder through many hoops. Our job was even put under a stop work order because they didn't yet have the exact address for the property on the plans. We were required to keep 25 feet from the property edge so that there would be at least 50 feet between the homes. We even chose to push our house back further from the street so that it would have the same look and feel as much as possible as the other homes along the street. We went to great lengths to not detract too much from the existing feel of the subdivision. We didn't build a $300,000 or $400,000 home either. One concern I have is that even with the additional space between our home and the road, the distance from my front door to the end of that sidewalk, or that 3.5 feet additional space in the plan, is only 50 feet. I strongly doubt that these homes are 25 feet from the road, as was the minimum requirement when we built our home. My question is, has the West Jordan Engineering and Planning Department fallen so low as to consider this rezoning without proper due diligence? And may I ask why? Because I would like to also say that the homes proposed would constitute 13 new homes, similar in size to our own along this street, but would need to be even taller. Also, these proposed 13 homes would all sit on less than 2 acres. The builder would like you to believe that they reside on something close to 1/4 acre each, but that is a wink, wink, blatant lie. Because most of the acreage of this lot is on a slope too steep to build. It is on a 3.84 acre lot that only has at most half the buildable area. That equates to a mere 6,500 square feet per home. That's a far cry from 10,000 square foot or 1/4 acre that's required by other lots that I know of in West Jordan. Unless you're planning to rezone our entire neighborhood and allow everyone to build on 1/8 acre lots like they have in downtown Salt Lake City, I would advise against going down this road and allowing the subdivision to proceed. I know of what I speak. I grew up in downtown Salt Lake City, across from Liberty Park. I didn't like it then, and I wouldn't like to have purchased this property knowing that we'd have something similar across the street. HOA is just a sham attempt, in my opinion, to con this council into falling for the additional tax revenues that 13 homes would provide. It doesn't address existing concerns that we, the current residents, have, some of which include garbage pickup and fire. We currently wheel our garbages down the street to 8925. Sometimes those garbage bins wrap around on the 1050 West. The developer says they could work something out, but no garbage truck or fire truck can fit down 1030 West. It's a one-lane street. Residential street. Currently 1030 West is and always been a private lane, dead-end street. This proposal doesn't change that. It intends to cram 13 homes into less than 2 acres and expect them to use existing one-lane road, which is 1030 West. If the plan were to show a true residential street, the homes would sit about 5 feet from the sidewalk going past them. Since there is no eminent domain clause or right-of-way on any of our property deeds, the entire residential street improvements, including curb and gutter, would have to come off their side. And proper distance between homes. These homes have only 6 feet between them. For the height of the home being proposed in currently zoning standards, this must be unacceptable. Such spacing does not meet any minimum distance specifications I have seen for homes of this height. When I proposed they just build townhomes, the developer said West Jordan City would not approve such a plan. My question is then, why would you approve a plan that simply creates townhomes but technically keeps them separated by 6 feet? Imagine a wall 20 feet high on both sides separated by 6 feet. No grass can grow there. It would become a trash collection area whenever the wind would blow. It's inconsistent with the current subdivision. These proposed homes and HOA are entirely at odds with the current feel for the neighborhood. On one side of the street, you will see homes crammed together, while on the other side of the street, you will see homes widely spaced apart. Such subdivisions promote lower property values because they are odd and not aesthetically appealing to home buyers. Our property values will plummet down our private lane, and we will be known as an eyesore. Proper rezoning. If zoning is desirable, it should include all homes and property along 1030 West that empty onto that street. Currently, it is not addressing 2 additional large pieces of property that should be included in any subdivision plan. I'm running out of time here, but I'd like to propose that, if in fact they want to do that, 6,000 square foot lots, it should be R16. That way they could all be on 1/8 acre lots. Utilities as well. They're old. They're like 1940s. They haven't addressed that. And currently we've had 2 major outages where they've had to rip up my lot in order to repair that old utilities. So just let me conclude here, 30 seconds. These are but a handful of our concerns. I strongly advise you vote against the zoning change, especially one that puts in place an HOA without all current property owners being willing party to such zoning changes. We will have to interact with this HOA, use the existing streets, deal with it as if we were a member and yet be excluded from it. If I wanted to live or deal with an HOA, I would have either bought a townhome or an apartment in downtown. I didn't then, and I don't wish to as well now. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Dover?
Joanne Dover, I live at 8927 South. My north end is 1030 West. On garbage day, which happens to be this morning, the garbage truck comes at 7 a.m. And along the north edge of my property, there's at least 10 garbage cans lined up. The garbage truck cannot make the curve onto 1030 West because it's a private lane. All those homeowners have to, along the west side, have to wheel their garbage cans in front of the north side of my property, which is fine. You add 13 more homes. If the garbage truck can't get down 1030 West, how are those 26, if you have 13 new homes, that's 26 more cars trying to get to work at 7:30 in the morning, passing a garbage truck and all those garbage cans. You can't get a garbage truck. You can't get people around the garbage truck. The garbage truck has taken out my fence at least once, trying to go in and back out. My other concern is 1075 West and 9000 South, that intersection. I've lobbied with the state numerous times trying to get a light there. You add another 26 cars to that intersection, people trying to get out and go to work in the morning. We need, you must have a light. I can't tell you how many near misses there have been at 1075 West and 9000 South. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Dover?
Chairman, really quick, I need to leave. I need to excuse myself. I have a prior commitment. I believe Commissioner Quinn does as well.
Well, then we'll excuse Commissioner Jacob and Commissioner Quinn.
Going to run away.
But thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for listening to us. I have many of the same concerns that my wife just expressed. The last time we talked about a rezoning of this particular property, we talked about 8925, which apparently is not a standard width street. It's very narrow. And so what she talks about in terms of the garbage collection is a serious problem. I would hope that as we further consideration of this, and I realize this is a very preliminary stage, but as we further consider this, if we've got 13 homes down there, that while we may meet the letter of the law with respect to fire and ambulance service, 13 homes is a significant number. I second my wife's concern about 90th South and 1075 West. We've repeatedly asked, in fact, the last time there was discussion of rezoning this particular segment of property, there was some concern about that. There was some talk that the state was going to do an audit of that particular intersection. I don't know that that has ever been done. We've tried numerous times to get the state to give us some results on that, and they have not. Adding 13 more homes to this particular neighborhood makes that intersection deadly. The only other access to this particular neighborhood is either to the north, another 2 blocks, which is kind of tortuous back through the neighborhoods, or to go out the back way and out to 1300 West, which is a long distance around if you're headed to the south. So those are my concerns that we consider as we do the rezoning. I'm also concerned by the slope there, and I'm glad that that's been addressed, and I hope that has been addressed adequately. I know that the University of Utah in recent years has remodeled some of their lines for impact from earthquake, and I would hope that we consider some of those as well, because the line does run right along the top of that ridge as you're looking into the Jordan Valley there. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the individuals who submitted a comment card. If there's anybody else who would like to comment?
I'm Janet Erickson, and I'm just a new move-in at West Jordan, and I saw the paper and decided to go look and see where this was for my curiosity. And I saw that, and I thought, that looks like a bad idea, such a narrow road, and too many houses in such a little tiny place. And so I just thought I'd come and say, I think it looks like a bad idea from me. Thank you. Janet Erickson.
Good evening. Randy McDougall, former planning commissioner here as well, years ago, so thank you. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts tonight. First of all, I want to express my support of developing the land, just making sure it's done wisely. I also want to be respectful of the 3 minutes, and so I'm going to try to just hit some bullet points and go from there. If you'd like more detail, we can talk. But in the plan that I'm sure you're now well aware, I didn't see it in the packet, but that is a private lane and it is very narrow. What hasn't been discussed about it, though, is that it also has a very thin road base and is sitting on top of a ditch with just concrete tiles that hold the road up. So as they're talking about these dump trucks, or not dump trucks, but garbage trucks coming in there, when we met with the developer, just as a few neighbors, he seemed unaware that the garbage trucks couldn't go back in there. The road certainly will not support the weight. Even if you widen it, it still will not support the weight of the dump truck or the garbage truck. The concern about the garbage cans is a very real one, where they're sitting there at the entrance to this area. I think that's already been discussed plenty, though. One of the things as you look at rezoning is looking at whether the land can handle the intensity that they're talking about. And it's my opinion that it absolutely cannot handle that intensity. Right now, where there's 6 homes that access that private lane going up to 19 homes, that's a dramatic increase. And I would say that the road can't handle the 6 that it's currently got. It certainly would not be able to go 19. Even if it was widened an extra couple of feet as the developers proposed, we're going to have to widen it a lot more than that to support. There are going to be people parking on the side of the road no matter what the HOA says. Can't have cars going in and out. You want to talk about a fire truck getting back in there, it won't be able to, even if you do have that little turnaround at the end. One concern that also came up from my aunt, one of the other homeowners there, is you talk about the common area for in the packet that the developer submitted to the city, he's talking about this great big common area. Well, that's this very steep slope. It's really not accessible. Even if you were to put a sidewalk back there, it's really not anything I would consider something that the neighborhood can go and enjoy. The kids, since we're talking 6 feet between homes, they're not going to be playing there. They're going to be playing in the middle of the private lane. Once again, adding quite a bit of a problem to that. I want to reiterate, we do support developing the land, but we don't support this intense development. Something more in line with what its current zoning is would be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't need to be. Just come on up, give us your name and contact info, and you'll have 3 minutes as well.
I'm Willa Thompson, and I live on that lane too. It is a private lane, and that is why the garbage trucks do not go down it, because Tommy didn't want it and I didn't want it. It's a private lane. They can go down it. There's no problem. They tried to go down it, and I've stopped them. That is why the garbage goes out to the road, because if we opened our private lane up, then Nailers would have to open up theirs, And the ones over there just off of 90th would have to open up theirs. There's a lot of them that would have to open them up that are private lanes. That's why we didn't open it up to the garbage trucks. But the garbage trucks can go down. And they can turn around at my end down there, because there is, on the south side, there is a cul-de-sac down there, past my place. And that hill is only really the steepest on the north side. And that, I was raised there. I'm 77 years old. I've lived there all my life. And we farmed that property. That property belongs to my family. Okay? It is run cows on it. They've irrigated it, everything else, and it runs right off. And the really deep part is on the north side. As you come to the south, it levels out with my property. And it's more or less flat out. It's really a funny, kind of like a scoop, a half of a spoon or something like that. So it is solid in there, because they run cows and horses and everything else there through there. But that's still up to you. I would like to see, I'm not against him building there because of the skunks, the rats, and the thistles, and the goat heads, and everything. It's a dump, and I'm ashamed of it. It was my family's property, and I am totally ashamed of these guys having to live there across the street from it with all this garbage, all these things blowing in their yard. And it has been an eyesore for years, not just a few years, years, because the man has never taken care of it in the last 15 years. And I take really good care of mine. I will admit that. And I'm proud of it. I would like to see something done and something nice in there. I would really like to see something nice, because it is a beautiful view. You might say, well, you got the power plant. That power plant doesn't even show anything. If you look off of our property and look out there, the top of those power plants run right along the bottom of the mountains over there. So they don't disturb anything. It's a beautiful view there. I would like to see it developed and developed beautiful and nice. But you really don't have to worry about the north, that hill over there. And I think they could come farther down on the south side because it's so solid. But that's up to you guys. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll get one shot. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment? We'll then close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any further discussion. Commissioner Green.
First off, I'm going to tell everybody thank you for showing up. No matter what we decide tonight, we appreciate your input. My first thought is that we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And I know we have to deal with the general plan, but as I look at 13.5C-1, it specifically says in code, a planned residential development should incorporate a common architectural design theme throughout the project that provides variety and architectural compatibility as opposed to a development of individual, unrelated buildings located on separate, unrelated lots. This project is 13 houses on separate, unrelated lots. They're clustered, but they're individual buildings on separate lots. So one of Commissioner Sikorsky's questions is it's going to be a separate lot. As I look at, and I'm going to put this on the record, as I look down the 14 criteria that it's required that the code looks at to see if this meets the overall intent for a PRD, there are 14 criteria, and I count 8 that it fails. There's not a mixed range of housing types. It just doesn't meet the criteria for a PRD. I know that the staff discussed today that we don't have the ability to find that it doesn't meet the purpose and intent, but for the record, it just doesn't fit. And then when we get into some more specifics about the development, I'll talk more about specifics. But at this point in time, I disagree with the fact that we're even trying to use a PRD in a 3.5 acre, 3.6 acre, whatever we are, zone. It just doesn't fit.
Commissioner Skoski?
Just again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Your opinion matters, and it's good to hear the public's view on this. I'd like to just kind of agree along the same lines. I don't think the development fits the area, and I think one of our responsibilities is to make sure that we represent public, and I feel like public that lives directly across the street there has made their voice quite loudly known tonight. The other thing, I have very large concerns about that private lane, and as was said, there's already 10 garbage cans that are down along that edge, and if we add 13 more, yeah, then there's just not going to be enough room for all of that. I feel like that'll pose a safety hazard. I feel like it'll pose a health hazard. I just don't feel like this is a good fit for the area.
I'm going to come back now to some specific criteria for the general plan. Specifically, criteria number 2. It talks about the proposed amendment will result in compatible land use relationships and does not adversely affect the adjacent property. That was the staff finding, and I am going to tell you that I disagree. As I looked last night on a map, I found that most of the properties along the private lane that we've heard from most of the neighbors tonight, most of those are half acre to the quarter acre lots. The only lots that are 0.15 or smaller are the 3 that come down from the west from the west of the private lane on the north side of the road. There's 3 houses there. They're 0.15 acres. When the developer puts in his plan, in one of his documents, he says that they specifically refer to, these are going to be, and I quote, where did it go? It's 11,000 square foot, 11,080 square foot per lot. That's disingenuous, and I agree with one of the citizens. These are 13 houses on less than 6,500 square feet. They're going to be packed in, and it's not the character of that particular neighborhood. When we start looking at, yes, there's going to be, it meets the specific requirement of the code if we approved it, to say it's 3.77 because we're including the entire piece of property, but when you look at them in totality, you're going to have 13 houses stuck on top of each other with 1.5 acres, 2 acres in the back that the public can't get to because it's a private road, which violates the code, by the way. But it just doesn't, I agree with Commissioner Sikorsky, it just doesn't fit. And the health and safety issues, it just doesn't have a compatible land use there. These are closer to 6,000 square foot lots, 13 houses. I will point out as well that based on some of the designs that they proposed, there are some specific requirements of garages and PRDs. Some of those mean that they can't have 50% more than 50% of the ground floor street facing linear building frontage. Most of the designs that we saw tonight in the packet are well exceed 50% of the garage front, and so those designs aren't going to work. They might build a great product, but given the context of the PRD, given the context of the compatible land uses, I think it fails criteria number 2. I think even in criteria number 4 with the garbage, I think the neighbors have provided enough fact that the garbage is an issue. We have a private street. I just don't see that we can find a finding of fact that this PRD development actually fits this particular piece of land.
Commissioner Hunter?
I just have one comment. There's a concern, and it's a good concern with the garbage pickup there. If this were to go through and the project were approved, you'd have an HOA that would collect the garbage in the HOA fee, and I'm wondering if that wouldn't be picked up on site on the project, alleviating that concern. That's just a thought that I have.
Commissioner Scott?
Even if the garbage was picked up in criteria 3, it says that the proposed amendment furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city. I feel that it fails in the health, not just with the garbage, but where you have that many people packed into that area with that kind of a slope behind it. I know we talked about that could be mitigated, but we're probably just meeting minimum standards, right? To retain that slope, would that just be the minimum standard? Or do you think that's past that?
What was your question?
So the slope that's behind the houses, 30% grade, we don't allow anything to be built on that above 30%. In order to build houses there, we just have to meet the minimum standard of code to retain that, right?
Yes, well, there'd be a geotech study to make sure that it's not moving, there's no water moving under, that type of thing. Having worked in a community where we had a lot of slopes, what really degrades these slopes is when you cut at the toe of them. This hasn't had a lot of cutting at the toe.
Right.
And so they can hold up a lot of weight as long as it's not
toe is left alone.
And so, yeah, it would have to meet all of the design criteria of their geotech study. Yeah. Okay.
And then as far as safety, with the lane being as narrow as it is, I don't feel that even if a fire truck could get down there, if we have cars that are blocking it, which with 13 homes, I feel like there would at least be one car out there.
Yeah, can I address that?
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of focus on this narrow lane, and the last two applicants have been told that that street will have to be widened to a minimum of 40 feet of asphalt, a minimum. 29 feet, but it could be up to a 50-foot public road. And that design will come in as the subdivision is developed. As far as going to 8925 South, they're going to have to work with the south property owner to make sure that turn meets city standards. We're not just going to allow someone to build as that road exists. It would have to be completely reconstructed to meet city standards. And the applicant's been made aware of that from the pre-application meeting. Okay. The only private roads would be probably the ones coming back in, really serving as the driveways for the home. Now, will that alleviate the garbage issue? It may or may not. We still may require this to be, Nate just leaned over and said it may still need to be privately contracted. We'll have to determine that if the development goes forward at this point. But the road will have to be significantly widened, 1030 West that is. And we have no intent of forcing a taking on the properties to the west. It would all have to come east, and then it would be constructed. So we're not going to take anyone's property. It'd have to be as a result of this development. So.
Okay.
Larry, based on the discussion and comments so far tonight, are you hearing anything that we can't mitigate or address through the remaining process?
The subdivision? Mm-hmm. I think we can, yeah. Will it flesh out at 13? I'm not sure. I certainly don't see it going higher than that. So there's only one way it can go. but until we get into the real design and laying out of the homes and how it will fit. Now, setbacks in a PRD are really up to the approval of the planning commission at the time of the subdivision. So, but we would want to see, it to be consistent with the neighborhood. So.
Commissioner Beck?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree with Commissioner Green's assessment, just in devil's advocate and also in fairness to the applicant, and certainly not discounting all of the public comments. Tonight it is the zoning amendment that we're having a motion on, and a lot of these concerns, as Chairman Laws mentioned, would be addressed at a future date. It wouldn't just be putting the houses on it with exactly what is there right now in terms of width or turnaround or access or the garbage cans, that all of those issues would have to be addressed as this thing goes further and further down the line. So I'm kind of torn both ways. I agree with what you're saying. I agree with the citizens in what is currently there, but as this continues from step to step, it would have to meet criteria to mitigate those concerns that have been brought up by residents, unless I'm off base.
That's the direction of my thinking as well.
Well, that's what made the other project fail, is they weren't able to meet or they were unwilling to meet city standards.
Commissioner Spassi?
So if we do change the zoning, what restrictions are there on the amount of height and the amount of units that can be placed on there?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. The height restriction will be up to the planning commission at time of the subdivision approval.
Okay.
I guess the unit count would be also at that time, because really all you're doing is establishing the area for the PRD, whether you're recommending to the council, nay or yea, whether you feel like the planned residential development zone works for this property.
I was just wondering if we did change it, if there could be any unforeseen trouble down the line that would, I guess, allow too many units or whatever, but I guess it would all have to meet minimum engineering standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm way too old and have had too many bad experiences to say there's never going to be a problem. And so it's but you do have more control in a PRD, the planning commission at the subdivision level than you do with the standard subdivision. That's pretty much set out, front, side, rear yard setbacks are all, height is all set in ordinance. So this is a little more flexible, a little more creative, on a very difficult site. So.
I'll just interject here, and I'll probably get off my soapbox, but the last time that we did a planned residential development, it was a PRC, but the last time that the city did a PRD and made the round peg fit in the square hole, we ended up having the city face a major lawsuit that we had to deal with Gardner Village, because there were some of the exact same issues at Gardner Station. And I just want to try to avoid those. I will point out that the code does require that a rezoning request can't be approved without concurrently approving the concept plan. And I can tell you that based on 15.5C2 subsection C, the concept plan does not meet the requirements of the code, specifically 3 and 5. There's no location of parks, common open spaces, the public or private recreation facilities and improvements proposed within the development, and there's no preliminary development schedule. So I'm going to take a firm stance that I'm going to vote against this.
If this were to go through, would there be, let me back up a minute. There's been public testimony that they would like to see this property developed, and in a way that is going to be acceptable to the applicant and to the neighbors. And we seem to go back and forth on Gardner Gardner Village, and with the public input and the developer input and the staff input, we came, and all the input that was brought forward, we came to an acceptable end result and an end product, and we're able to move forward. I feel strongly that we could do the same thing here, and that's my thought.
Commissioner Pack?
Right, thank you. I just love, no matter what's said, I always love the devil's advocate, just to make sure all sides are represented. So I really appreciate all the conversation on both ends. You know, again, I appreciate all the citizen comments. But then I guess devil's advocate, they're talking about their property. You know, if my neighbor wants me to put up a fence in my yard, it doesn't mean that I have to put up a fence in my yard, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because the property owner is the one that would be doing, you know, what he wants on his property, provided that, of course, it's within the parameters of the zoning and all the code is followed. So very good. And as this is a quasi-judicial decision, I mean, findings of fact, Commissioner Green has shown and is read verbatim from the code, so I can see how it doesn't fit. Also, I see, as Commissioner Heiner said, you know, well, the square shape will kind of get rounded off as it keeps hitting against everything that needs to be done with the further action. And we're going to see this again, would that be correct, for everything else that needs to go on along the way. So we'll be familiar with the history and the public comment and make sure that everything gets changed that needs to be changed. So at this point, I tend to lean with Commissioner Heiner, in that we can come to an amicable resolution and just be, if we do move forward, it doesn't mean that things need to be as they currently are.
I concur on both of those. The only place I get hung up, though, is on the code and the concept plan.
Yeah.
Mr. Skoski.
I wonder, both parties have heard a lot tonight, and I'm wondering if it would be better to readdress this with another concept plan rather than making decisions tonight because of the problems with the code and with our quasi-judicial decision tied to that code. I wonder if it would be better if both parties could get together and figure out a better concept plan that would be more amicable to both parties that could be brought back at a further time.
Well, and you know what? I tend to agree with that. The reason why I say that is when I had some long talks with, I'm going to go back to Gardner Village, but I had long talks with Joe Colosimo after the Gardner Village stuff. And what he said was, he got too focused on his project, and what he wishes he would have happened was he would have got the neighbors involved a lot sooner and had the neighbors help design that project. So I tend to agree with you that before we make any decision, I think that what we probably ought to do is, I don't want to say unleash the neighbors on the developer, but I think that what we ought to have is some, because we've heard from some of the neighbors that they're not adverse to that property being developed. And I think there's probably some compromise to make this work where the developer can make some money, but where the neighbors feel like it doesn't detract from their neighborhood by throwing 13 houses on right in front of their house. So I tend to agree with you that there's before we vote it down or before we vote it up, maybe there's a way we can send this back and fix the concept plan and come back with a better plan that maybe the neighbors can agree with better.
Would staff be all opposed to continuing this to a later time?
Staff's not opposed, but, you know, it's really the developer's application. So it's what they want to do. They may just want you to vote on it one way or the other. So, but I would certainly get their input.
We did promise the developer he'd have some time to comment again, and we haven't. I wonder if we could bring him into this at this point.
You are correct. I did miss that. Thank you, Commissioner Scotty. Yeah, so if you would like to address any of the concerns, I did miss that at the end of the public comment period.
Dan, I'd like to say, I respect neighbors. We're one of the few developers who reach out to people in the first place and try to find out what's going on, what's on their mind. Unfortunately, as developers, we're normally looked at as the bad guy. And it seems like once you try to bring a development into an area that we have ours, and now we want whatever's developed to fit what we want. And we're trying to protect not only, we're in business, we're trying to make a profit, but we're trying to protect Tommy and property values. And it's like Larry has said, that we have to go back through. We have to make sure the road's safe. We don't want to build on something that's going to collapse. We got to do geotech, and we got to invest tons of money in this to even make sure it's safe, and then if it's not, we have to walk away. We know we have to make that road better. We know the HOA does the garbage pickup, and there's certain things that have to be addressed as a process, and we always try to work with cities. But unfortunately for us, when we look at the property value there and you run the numbers, which businesses numbers, and you look at that, if that's just 4 lots or 3 lots, it's not profitable for a developer. There's already been 2 that's walked away. When I first put this piece under contract, I was told by people I was crazy. Don't do it, just let it sit. You can't make a dime there. And if you can't make any profit, why develop it? So it can either sit there with the goat heads, the weeds. I've been contacted by code officials in West Jordan saying, how do they get in touch with the owner so that they can knock down the weeds? I voluntarily offered to go do it. They said, we're not going to require you to do that. We're trying to build a project that can turn a profit, but also is nice and quality. And we have to go through a lot of other creative things with staff and with you guys and the size of the homes and the shape of the homes. We're not opposed to making it all fit the one fill of a PRD. The reason we don't is we try not to, as developers, to dictate what people get in their home. We try to give people a little bit of flexibility. But if the city wants to say, no, we want it under this code to fit, and they all have to match and they all have to be identical, we'll build it. But it's one of those things, we're going to have to see you guys multiple times. We're going to have to do other reiterations, and if we don't know that we can get some kind of a zone change, we're going to end up walking from this project. It's not only going to hurt Tommy, it's going to hurt his sister who's next door, because this will be the 3rd strikeout for developers in that area, that it's just not a feasible project. And we believe it can be a feasible project. We might lose a unit. We're going to widen the road. We tried to keep the long driveways in that conceptual so people do park down the driveways, because we don't want people parking on a private lane either. But I've visited that property multiple times, and right now the people complaining about the parking on the private lane are parking on the private lane. So it's one of those things. We can set codes for the HOA that they can't go out there, but in retrospect, I can't knock on everybody's door and say you have to follow the law. Some of it comes to the HOA making sure they do it. We can't guarantee everything will go perfect, but we're trying to make it an acceptable project that we can work through. And the only way it's feasible is if we can go ahead and hire, and that's going to cost us another 50 grand or 75 grand to get drawings on there and look at the engineering and look at the geotech. And at that point, it could come out that no, the side of this isn't going to handle this, and we could walk away. That's part of the risk of who we are and what we do. But unless we know there's some sort of trying to work together and some sort of, hey, yeah, you can do this, going back to neighbors, it's always nice when people want to get involved with what we develop, but the problem is it's not their money up for risk. It's not their livelihoods that they put on everything. We're not the huge developers in the thing. So we look for these unique properties where we can add value to the neighborhood. I don't think homes that sell for more money than the homes in the neighborhood already are going to deter the value of their homes. It's going to lift them up. So if you have a home on a smaller lot that's selling for mid-300s to 400s, don't you think a home on a bigger lot would actually increase in value? So there's things that need to be mitigated, and we know that. We know it's a process, But we're just saying, let's take the opportunity to work together, because if we don't get some kind of a green light here, the money we have to invest every month to hold on to this property, we're going to have to say, we're going to have to cut the ties and walk, and then it's going to be a field for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years until finally somebody says maybe we should go ahead and let a nice development go in. We're willing to work with you and take your advice and work with you on this stuff, but we would like a vote on it tonight.
Commissioner Scott?
The reason that I do understand the perspective that where money is involved, it does cost money to make drawings. Believe me, I understand that. But where this has the code issue that's tied to it, I feel like without those drawings, if we don't have an additional drawing, then I will have to vote no on this, because it's we talk about value here, and value as in the dollar, but there's value that's not tied to money. There's value of someone's right to enjoy the place where they live. And I do understand that when you have a place and someone else is trying to build something close to it, the developer's a bad guy. I do understand that. And I do understand that that people don't want to see change sometimes. But I also feel that in this instance, there could be some room to move, to compromise and work this out, and it doesn't appear at this point that that's something that the developer is willing to do. So, I mean, I know you say you're willing to talk about it, but if you're not willing to give us another drawing that shows kind of a more compromised intent, then I'm just going to have to vote no.
Sir? Any further comments, discussion?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the discussion that we've had tonight and the attention to detail in the code, as you should do it. As an additional reminder, referring to the code, this is a PRD, and unlike a standard R110 zone, the Commission does have the ability and the authority and even the right to recommend to the Council specific conditions of approval for this rezoning action to mitigate certain aspects for the development. So I'm sure all of you are aware of that, but as you consider your motions tonight, whether to table it or to forward a positive or negative recommendation to the Council, you can go through those specific concerns indicated tonight and request the Council to consider certain conditions of approval. So, including a cap on density and all of that stuff. So.
Commissioner Pack?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Langford. It's a tough one because the developers mentioned that they want to vote tonight, whether yay or nay. But I'm sensing there might be a nay, and that shoots everyone in the foot. But the citizens have said they want it developed, and they would have to compromise, and the developer would like to still see this move forward. So I would still, despite what has just been said on what is wanted on a vote, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to vote. And so I would agree with Commissioner Zukoski, in the best interest of everyone, for the time invested coming to the meeting, time invested coming up with these preliminary plans already and not having those thrown out and just walk away from the project. I think it would be in the best interest of everyone who's expressed concern tonight to see something different. I think there's considerable concern in either moving forward or just denying it, and I think that happy medium would be to see something different. It doesn't need to be black and white. It can be something that would be more amenable to all parties involved. So thank you for bringing that up.
Did you want to make a motion out of that?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Scott?
Make a motion that we move to table this item and give the developer and the homeowners time to discuss and compromise a bit, and that we can bring back a plan that doesn't necessarily have to be drawn and drafted, but something that shows intent on the part of the developer and compromise on the part of the citizens before we make a decision on this item.
Second.
Specifically.
Motion by Commissioner Sikorsky, second by Commissioner Pack.
Do we need, my question is, do we need to set a deadline for that to come back for us?
Well, we can do that, or we can set it to a date to be undetermined, but I guess, what is it you're looking for to come back if you don't want a new?
I want to see a drawing, but I don't think that we need to put the, I don't think we need to put an, what am I trying to say? I don't think we need to put the financial burden on the developer of necessarily having to have a draftsman and an engineer and everybody draw this out. I think we could even do an overlay that just shows intent, because all of those drawings are going to have to come back through again anyway. So if we can show something, anything, that shows compromise between the citizenry and the developer, just kind of shows kind of a concept, a general concept.
So do you want to see dimensions?
Yeah, just basic dimensions, basic, I don't feel like it has to be engineered, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it would be conceptual.
Right, just a concept.
Yeah, and so, but you want to see widths of driveways, that type of thing?
Right, yes.
And I'm not badgering you, I'm just trying, because I meet with these guys, and I don't want to look any dumber than I already do.
Me ask staff what would be acceptable.
Okay, then, I think that the open areas, widths of driveways, roadways, how that's going to be handled, that type of thing. From what I'm hearing, the main concerns with, the neighborhood is, parking on the street, the use of the street. 13 houses, believe it or not, will not create an overburdening of traffic. Those roads are able to handle that. I think the garbage collection is a concern, that type of thing will be, we'll just bring it back, answer some of the questions in the minutes is what I'll do. Okay. And that's if, the developer even wants to meet, but, that'll be the point, so.
Commissioner Pack?
Great, thank you, because then it's more specific and objective instead of nebulous and subjective. Well, we want to see something different. Well, what is different? Well, exactly, we have a traffic engineer, who can give us 2 cents, because it seems like that's a major consideration. And then also to address the issue that Commissioner Green has brought up, being so well prepared in knowing the code. I think a major portion of that, since it's a quasi-judicial decision, it needs to be, that needs to be addressed to make sure that it fits what is in the code, because no matter how nice it seems, since it's a quasi-judicial matter, we need to stick to the code.
I was going to address that because I think that the approvals are inherent with one another. If you're approving a recommendation to the council, then you're approving the concept plan. But if you want to see it more specifically, I'll revamp the staff report and bring it back so that it makes a level of comfort. Because I think it was inherent that one begat the other. One other comment, and don't take this the wrong way, but if the applicant is willing to work and bring something back, then am I understanding that it will be leaning more towards the positive direction, or is it going to be the same when we come back?
Well, I would think if it meets all of the objections that Commissioner Green has brought up tonight with the exact verbatim that's in city code, and the residents seem happy,
that there's been some effort to compromise, then.
Because what I've heard is not so much, it's more or less, well, I don't think it fits, I don't like it, there's any way for it to fit. That's a really hard thing to design in a concept. And you get where I'm coming from. I don't want to, just kick this down the road to have a denial later on.
I would just like to see some of the concerns addressed in the concept.
Okay. All right.
So go ahead, Commissioner Hunter.
I'm okay.
So let's run those down. What specific items do we want addressed?
Okay,
So that we are looking at some specific items to reconsider.
garbage pickup
Garbage pickup.
is a concern.
On-street
Parking is a concern.
Traffic flow.
The public or private recreation facilities and improvements proposed within the development. How the public's gonna access the back. What are the proposed amenities that will be there? I mean, those words are right out of the code.
And I don't think that necessarily has to be a public project. I think this can remain private.
It says public or private recreation facilities.
So it will be private because there was no intent for this to be a public.
But the intent of a PRD is to also preserve, to preserve and for the general benefit. It says and I quote, criteria number 9, encourage and provide for open land for the general benefit of the community and the public at large as places for recreation and social activity. So if that property's going to be opened up, based on number 9, it really does. We're supposed to encourage and provide open land for the general benefit of the community.
And you're looking at the overall intent. Is that where you're reading from?
That's the intent. And if we can't meet some of the basic intent of this development, then it can't fit. I mean, if we're...
But it also says, rather is the intent of this section that the control exercise be a minimum necessary to achieve the purpose of this chapter. I don't read that. I don't believe it necessarily has to meet all 14.
I don't think it needs to meet all 14, but when
I don't think that we're ever intending to open up 3 acres of property to the public. So, I think that if it was 100 acres, I'd say yes.
But if it's 100 acres, then it meets the definition of PRD, and that's where it goes back to my contention that 3.5 acres may not fit.
I think there's a simple solution here that could meet both, and that's that we just, the developer just give us information on how he plans to finish the open space, which he already indicated today would be lawn, but if it's written down on the concept plan, then we can see exactly what the intent is.
Do you have enough to move forward with some further clarifications there? Any further discussion to the motion? Commissioner Heiner?
Not to the motion, no.
Very well. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay here.
Very well. Motion fails 2-3. With Commissioners Heiner and myself and Commissioners Green casting the dissenting votes on that. We're back, gentlemen. What would you like to do?
I'll make the motion. We'll see where we go. We might as well make it. Let me pull out the notes here. Turn to the right page. There I go. Thanks. I'm going to move based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today. I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation of the City Council to rezone the property located at 8891 South, 1030 West from R1 10E, single family residential, 10,000 square foot minimum lots to PRD, planned residential development zone. Specifically, I disagree with the staff and find that the following criteria for the zoning amendment have not been made. Specifically, criteria number 2, the proposed amendment will not result in a compatible land use relationship and does adversely affect the adjacent properties. 3, that the proposed amendment does not further the public health. And 4, the proposed amendment will unduly impact the adequacy of public services and facilities intended to serve the zoning area.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Skoski. Discussion to the motion. favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2 with Commissioners Laws and Commissioner Heinrich casting a dissenting vote. There we are. That does conclude our agenda for tonight, unless there's anything else we need to discuss. One point to consider, as we came up in the pre-meeting, is that our next meeting is not 2 weeks from today, it is 15 days from today, so it'll be on Wednesday the 18th, as opposed to that Tuesday there, so we'll see you then. I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Green, anybody opposed to that? We stand adjourned until November 18th.
Thank you, everyone.
That wasn't a tough one.